Okay, you shouldn't need headphones, 8th grade. You're working on lesson 2.3, rotations, starting with the warm-ups. You guys remember how to get to it, or do I need to show you? Got it? Good. All right, work on those for a moment. I'll check them here in a minute. Once you've finished them, move over to the key ID and vocab and write those. Okay, so for this lesson, we're talking about rotation and the center of rotation and the angle of rotation. I really encourage you guys to take your time with this lesson. Try not to rush through it because it's easy to make small little mistakes that make a big difference. All right, so a rotation is when you have a shape and you're turning it. Okay, but you're turning it around a point. Sometimes the center of rotation is going to be attached on your shape, and sometimes you'll see here it's at a different point, and you can see that if I were to mark from this corner to this corner, it angles around this center of rotation. And we're going to practice this. The degrees that the figure actually rotates is called the angle of rotation. In this case, we went from straight up to sideways. Anybody have an idea how many degrees that is?
90?
Half of that. It's 45. So we went from, no, it is 90. We went from straight up to sideways, so it changed exactly 90 degrees. If it went from straight up all the way down, then it would be 180. Yep. All right, so let's do the example. No, don't click on it. All right, so you must rotate the puzzle piece 270 degrees clockwise, about point P, to fit it in the puzzle. Which piece fits in the puzzle as shown? So here's point P. Everybody see that? We're trying to rotate this puzzle piece 270 degrees. All right. Okay, around this. So I want to take this point and rotate it around 270 degrees. When rotating a figure, it might help you to sketch it in several steps. So we go part way, and we've gone how many degrees? 90. Okay, if I go another part way, I'm at 180. Okay, what's 270 minus 180? 90, so I need to go another 90 degrees? So now I've gone 270 degrees. So I would go in pieces. That way you take your time. So now which shape, A, B, C, or D, fits this one?
C.
C. So the correct answer is C. Okay? Don't be afraid to sketch this out if you need to, guys. All right, go ahead and do the try-its. Okay, so just to go over this shape real quick. You understand rotating 90 degrees, 180, or 270, yes? Okay, this is the way to look at it algebraically, meaning you're going to change the signs on your x and y values. Shh. So when you have an original point, x, y, and in this picture it's the blue one, if you're rotating it counterclockwise, which is which direction? Left, 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 around the clock. These are the ways you change your x and y. So if I'm going counterclockwise from this quadrant to this quadrant, I'm moving 90 degrees. You see that? You can see the x doesn't change, but the y value gets a negative y. Okay? What else do you notice here?
It's flipped.
It's flipped. So that makes this value your x coordinate and your y coordinate. No, that doesn't make sense. It still stays the same. Y. Negative y. It makes, yeah, it does make this your x and this your y. Question?
Why is it like that though?
It's just showing you how rotating around in a quadrant, in a coordinate plane, changes your signs, changes your variables. So this will make more sense when we use real numbers instead of the x and y. So let me explain and then we'll do an example. So if I were to rotate 180 degrees, that's complete flip-flop all the way to here, right? you see both my signs just get a negative. And that makes sense because this quadrant, you know the signs in this quadrant are positive, positive, right? This quadrant over here, both signs are negative, negative. So it makes sense if you flip it over here. Okay, now if I were to go 270 degrees, so I'm going all the way around to the bottom quadrant. This is quadrant 4. You can see the x changes to a negative and they flip places. Okay? So let's do one. Okay, the vertices of a trapezoid are W at negative 4, 2, negative 3, 4. I don't need to read all those. So you see these 4 points, right? Rotate the trapezoid 180 degrees about the origin. What are the coordinates of the image? So let's use the rules you just wrote in your journal to find the new coordinates. 180 degrees. What does that mean is going to happen to our x and y values according to your rule? What's the 180 rule? They change to both negatives. So they both get a negative applied to their sign. So your original x and y get applied a negative to both of them. So let's just change all these coordinates. So for w, if it's a negative times a negative, it becomes a positive. So then we have a plus 4, and then a positive and a negative becomes a negative. So this is my new coordinate for my new w. Now let's look at x. My negative 3 becomes a positive 3, and the 4 becomes a negative 4. My y, the negative 1 is a positive 1, and the 4 is a negative 4. We're getting into a pattern here. The last one, negative 1 and 2, would be 1, negative 2. Okay, so now we know our coordinates of our new image. Do we have to sketch it? No, because all it asks was what are the coordinates of the new image. Right, you write this in your journals. Okay, so I want to see this. And write the rule that you wrote in your journal. The 180 degrees makes the x, y change to negative x, negative y. This is the rule right here for 180 degrees. I'll leave this up for just a moment. And there is what it looks like if we were to sketch it. Make sense? Okay. After you've done that, go do the next try it. Okay, so here's example 3, I believe. The vertices of a rectangle are listed here, A, B, C, and D. Rotate the rectangle 90 degrees clockwise about the origin, and then reflect it in the y-axis. So now we're doing 2 steps. We're going to rotate it first, and then reflect it, which is what we did yesterday. Okay? So, first thing, we need to put the coordinates of the image. What are the coordinates of the new image? This is the old image? Yeah, so this is the old image. Okay, so we just drew the 4 coordinates. Put this in your journals.
Okay.
If you want graph paper, there's some up here. You may come get graph paper. Huh? Yes. You want graph paper? Come get it. Okay, so once you have it sketched, now we're going to rotate it. Okay, we're rotating it how far?
90.
90 degrees clockwise. Is clockwise our rules?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No. Counterclockwise is our rules.
Maybe so.
You're confusing me.
I'm sorry. All of our 3 rules are written for counterclockwise, correct?
Yes.
So this one says clockwise. So we have to, what counterclockwise degrees is our
270.
270. So we're going to use our rule for 270.
Yes, ma'am.
She said,
All right, so what's our rule?
She said the answer.
She did. What's our rule on 270?
X, Y, negative X.
So they switch places, the x and the y.
And then the
Negative y.
original X is, or the X is negative.
The y becomes negative, right?
No.
Yes.
No, that's for 90 degrees.
270.
For
We're on 270.
Then
Yeah, but if it's
then the
clockwise, because that's counterclockwise.
We're using the 270 rule.
we're not switching it.
How do you get
270.
What's happening? What am I doing now?
So calm down, relax, slow down.
The
What does the rule say? X, Y, arrow,
rotation of 270 x, y is
Changes.
y negative x.
Y to negative X. So we're flipping the X and Y and making the X negative.
Yes.
I'm aware it's the new Y, but let's not go into that. That gets confusing. Just keep it. Here's the rule. If I'd have known it was there the whole time, I wouldn't have had to say it.
Okay.
XY changes, we flip positions, and whatever the original X was becomes a negative X.
Yeah.
Okay? So the new A was at 3, negative 3, so we flip it and we get negative 3,
3.
positive 3, because we have we have to apply a negative to that. A negative and a negative is a positive. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Are you just saying yes?
Yes.
No. I mean,
At
no.
least you're being honest.
Yes, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Okay, let's try B. So we have B is 1, negative 3. We're going to apply this. So we're going to flip them. So it becomes negative 3, comma 1. But then we have to apply this negative to that 1. So it becomes negative 3, negative 1, which is right here. See how they graphed it? Okay, let's do C. Josh, I want you to help me do this one. He needs to do it so he knows it. So we have 1, negative 5 is the original. So we flip the 1 and the negative 5. So we have negative 5, 1. But then we change the sign of the 1 to negative. So it becomes a negative 5,
So you don't
negative
change
1.
the negative.
You don't change the Y that you moved. Okay? Max, you're going to help me on the next one.
Okay.
So on D, we have negative 3, negative 5. First we flip them. And then what signs do they have?
Negatives.
Both of them?
No, just they're both of them.
Let Max help me. So the first one becomes, negative 5 becomes the X, so that one stays negative 5. But then we have to do a negative and a negative so then it becomes a positive 3. So that's why you see it's graphed up here. Okay? All right. So there's the rotation. Okay, now we've rotated it. The last thing is to reflect it in the y-axis. What was the rule for reflection across the y? Samuel?
You make the x opposite of what it was.
Absolutely. You change the signs of the x. So for A, my new A is at negative 3, negative 3. No, negative 3, positive 3. The x changes to a positive 3, so it's going to go over here. See? All we did was change the value of the x. You flip it for whatever it was. So this one right here is at x negative 3. So it becomes a positive 3 and still positive 3.
Can I get my signs?
Quickly. Okay, now let's look at B. So B is right here. What's my x value for B? It's currently negative 3, yes?
Yeah.
So if I flip the sign, it becomes a
Positive.
positive 3. The y value doesn't change. Good?
Yes.
I'm trying to go slow because I don't want anybody to get confused. All right, so help me do C. Look up here. Those kids are loud in the gym. Stop rocking in those chairs, please. All right, so this C value is at what on the X line? This is negative 4, this is negative 5, right? So then to flip it across the Y, we change the X value to positive. So instead of negative 5, it becomes a positive 5. Okay, well, where are you at?
Finish writing down what we converted the rotation to.
Okay,
So I gotta finish writing the other stuff.
okay.
I think I was just like confused because I like.
Okay. So for this last value, Elena, help me do this one. So this is at what X value?
Why?
No, the X value.
Oh.
Where's D at? No, what is this? Right here. This is negative 4, this is negative 5. So the D value, yes. We're changing it across the Y line, so we mess with the X value. We don't mess with the y. It's backwards. It feels wonky. So this negative 5, if you flip the sign, it becomes a what?
8,
Positive 5. So that's why the new d value is over here. We don't change the y, so you're just grabbing this and put it on the positive 5. Okay? So this is just a lot of steps. So you guys got to be sure you're not super duper fast. Take your time. So then the new coordinates are listed here, and you see they have a double quote because we moved it twice. So the new coordinates are 3, 3, 3, -1, 5, -1, and 5, 3. Okay, I'm going to give you time to write that in your journals. Any questions on it?
For the reflection thing,
Mm-hmm.
are we still counting our coordinates as flipped?
Yes.
So, like, would it still
So once we flipped them, then they become the new x and y to do the reflection.
Well, no, like, okay, so, like, would we still have it to where it's the y, so, like, the y would come at negative x, so, like, technically we'd be changing the second number instead of the first one?
So after you have finished your rotation, when we do the next reflection thing, you don't technically keep this labeled x and y. We go back to it being this way, x and y. So this is just for doing the math. Once the math is done, then we go back to labeling the left point x and the right point y to do the reflection. Does that answer your question? Good question. Anybody else? All right. Go ahead and once you've written this in your journals, work on the next.
Yes.
All right. Example 4. A carousel is represented in a coordinate plane with the center of the carousel at the origin. So think that on your coordinate graphs that you're just looking down at the carousel, okay? You and 3 friends sit at this coordinate, A, B, C, D. Oh, so you have 4 friends. 4 of you all together, you and 3 friends. At the end of the ride, your positions have rotated 270 degrees clockwise about the center. What are your locations at the end of the ride? Okay, so this says clockwise. What are our rules written in? Counterclockwise. So which rule are we going to use? If I went 270 clockwise, I pointed at you twice. You didn't say it. So I went 90 degrees counterclockwise technically. So I'm going to use my 90 degrees counterclockwise rule, which is flip it and make the Y change the sign. So let's look at A. I'm going to say it's me. I'm sitting here, -4, 4. Flip it. Well, that's easy. -4 doesn't change. And then you change, the Y gets an extra negative applied to it. So it becomes a +4, right?
Yes.
So +4, -4. So that's my new point. Write this down. Bless you. Good, sort of? Yeah. So let's look at B, one of my friends. Okay? So I'm at -3, 0. We need to flip them first. And then my Y value, what is my current Y value here at the beginning? What's my Y value? 0. So if I move that, can I make it an opposite sign? 0 doesn't change. So all you have to do is flip this one. You can't have a -0. It's just 0, no matter what. Okay, my other friends sat at -1, -2. So we flip it and then change which sign?
Y.
Yes, which is now what?
1.
Oh.
I want to know the number. No, this moves over here.
-1.
The 2 changes to a positive.
Oh yeah. Ooh, I forgot. I hate English.
Yup.
Okay? My last one, this is my Y value. +3, -2. Okay, so that's where we ended up after the ride spun us around.
Yeehaw.
And there's a picture of it. Questions? Okay, write this in your journals, and then you can keep going on the self-assess. We're going to take a break as soon as you have it in your journals. But 7th grade, put your stuff back at your desks. 8th grade, once you finish this, your homework is to finish the self-assessments. Okay?